Hi everybody, this is Crystal. Welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing a tutorial on a hexagon cardigan. This wouldn't be a traditional style hexagon cardigan. I mean, it's made with hexagons, as you could see, but it's not like traditional granny style. This one's made with the herringbone stitch, so it's more solid, as you could see. It does have ribbing around the top here, and around the bottom. You've seen the pictures there. It is highly customizable. You can leave that ribbon up if you don't have to fold it over if you don't want. But it's highly customizable. So, here's the sleeves as well. You could fold them if you want, or leave them long. So, if you look in the description box, you will find a gauge swatch, or the gauge swatch, and the hook size, all the information that you need for all the different sizes. All right, all the rows that you need to adjust. It's meant to be a little bit of an oversized cardigan. So in the description box, we'll have different sizes, and so the two hexies that we make are the same size for no matter what size that you're using. Where we make it bigger or smaller is we add rows to the back and we add rows to the front. Now you can make it longer if you choose, because we do add rows to the bottom here. And if you want, we add some rows of herringbone and ribbing. If you want yours longer than mine, by all means, you can do more rows than what it says in the description box. Some people like long cardigans, some people like shorter ones. It's really up to you. Like I said, it's very customizable. You can make it bigger if you want by adding more rows, or if you don't want it to fit quite so loosely, like mine in the picture, you see me wearing it. I'm 5'3", and I chose to do the size large, so that's what it looks like on me. Normally though, I would wear a medium in clothing, so I did use a bigger size to make it a bit more, baggier. So you could choose, all the measurements are there and whatnot. So go ahead and refer to the description box, because I'm not going to really be giving too many, measurements. You just got to refer to the description box for whatever size that you want. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, I'll just go ahead and show you the yarn that I use for mine. It's called James C. Brett Rustic Aran Tweed. I bought this at the Wool Warehouse in the UK, but it is a medium weight number 4, and any medium weight number 4 will be just fine. You do not have to use this particular one. But it is 20 wool, 77 acrylic, 3% viscose, 760 yards. So for the size that I used, it's about 1,500 yards. So 2 balls and a little bit more of another. I'll give the amount of yardage. Remember, refer to the description box for each size. And if you're going to make it bigger than what it says in the description box, like longer or anything like that, you'll need more yarn than what it says down there. But yes, this is the one I use. It's color number 30, in case you're interested. And then a size I, all sizes. I, 5.5 millimeter crochet hook. All right, you guys ready? Let's do it. All right, we're going to start with the slip knot on our hook. Okay, let's start out with a chain of 6. Now you can use a magic circle here if you prefer. Not my thing, but I'm going to chain 6. And then I'm going to slip stitch into the first stitch to form a ring that we can work back into. So throw that tail on over. I like to use my middle finger here, put it in between the hook and the chain, and then I slip stitch. Now keep that open for me. Now I'm going to chain 1. Now that chain 1 does not count as a stitch. So for this particular, actually, like I talked about, we're using the herringbone, double crochet herringbone. So I'm going to show you how that is made. And we're going to be working it through the center of the ring. So we're going to yarn over, go through the center of the ring, and we're going to draw up a loop. Now we don't do anything else right now except for pull this loop through this loop. Just like that. You see that? And now we're going to yarn over and go through one loop on your hook, and yarn over and go through the remaining 2 loops on your hook. And that's how you do the double crochet herringbone. Now the pattern takes effect more the more rows you get going on. So let's go ahead and do another herringbone through the center of the ring. Are you ready? Yarn over and go through the center and draw up a loop. Now we just take the loop on our hook and pull it directly through the next loop, just like that. Then we're going to yarn over and go through one loop on our hook, and yarn over and go through the remaining 2 loops. So now we've done 2 herringbones. Let's do another one. Yarn over, go through the loop, and draw up. Take the first loop on your hook and pull it directly through the next loop. Then we're going to yarn over and go through one loop on our hook, and yarn over and go through the remaining 2. So now we have 3 double crochet 3 herringbones on our hook, or 3 herringbones in the ring. So now we're going to do a chain of 2, and we're going to work 3 more herringbones through the center of our ring. So again, let's do 3 more herringbones. It's just very important when you do the herringbone to just, as soon as you pull this loop up, just pull it directly through that first loop on your hook. And then you yarn over and only go through one loop. And then yarn over and go through the remaining 2. Just like that. Again. That's 2. So that is 3 herringbones again. You might have to slide them over. Like that. So we got 3 herringbones, chain 2, 3 herringbones. Let's do a chain 2 again. And do 3 more herringbones. Through the center of the ring. Just 1. 2. And there's 3, like that. Slide them over a bit. Chain 2 again. 1, 2. And 3 more herringbones to the center of the ring. So we're going to repeat this pattern until we have a total of 6 sets of 3 herringbone stitches with the chain 2 in between each one. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and continue that. Remember, you need 6 sets of herringbones, 6 sets of 3 herringbones with chain 2s in between them. I'll meet back up with you after the last set of 3 herringbone stitches. All right, so I have 6 sets. I'm sorry. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sets of 3 herringbones with chain 2s in between them. Now I just did my last set. Now instead of doing a chain 2, what we're going to do to end it is we're going to half double crochet into the first herringbone. Now the half double crochet is going to act as a chain 2 space. This will eliminate any slip stitching that we need to do. Now, don't worry about this big circle here. We can close it up with this tail here in just a little bit. It'll close right up with a yarn needle. So, in order for the herringbone to work out, because we're working it kind of in the round, you know, in order for it to look like the herringbone in the round, we have to turn our work every single row. So what we're going to do is chain 1 and turn our work. Okay, so that was row 1. So rows 2 and 3 are the repeat rows for the hexagon. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into this space right here, this half double crochet that we're counting as a chain 2 space, and we're going to work 2 herringbone stitches in it. So there's one, go back in it, work another. Oh, that's my fault. Into the same space. Okay, so we got 2 herringbones in that chain 2 space. Now we're going to work 1 herringbone into every stitch until we get to our next chain 2 space. So 1 in the top of each stitch. Remember, we're working the herringbone stitch. That's what this pattern consists of. One in each stitch until you get to your next chain 2 space. Just like that. And now I'm at my next chain 2 space. Now this is what all the chain 2 spaces are going to get from here on out, except for the very first one. We do that a little different. In this chain 2 space, when we repeat this row, this is what it'll get. It's going to get 2 herringbones into the space. So there's 1. And 2, and then we're going to chain 2 and go back into the same space and work 2 more herringbone stitches. Just like that. So it's 2 herringbones, chain 2, 2 herringbones. And then we repeat that. We're going to put 1 herringbone into every stitch until we get to the next chain 2 space. And I'm at my chain 2 space again. So in it, we're going to put 2 herringbones. There's 1. Two, and then we're going to chain 2. Go back into the same chain space and work 2 more herringbones. Like that. And this is what we're going to repeat all the way around until we get back to the beginning. So again, 1 herringbone in each stitch until we get to the next chain 2 space. And in the chain 2 space, we work 2 herringbones. There's 1. There's 2, a chain of 2. Go back into the same space and work 2 more herringbones. Now I'm going to go ahead and repeat this pattern all the way around until we get back here to the beginning where we just put 2 herringbones into that first chain 2 space. And you'll start to notice once you get back around that your hexie will have 6 sides. All right, so go ahead and repeat this, and I'll meet back up with you at the beginning. All right, so I've made it all the way around here, and here is where we put 2 herringbones in the beginning. Now we're going to go ahead and end this by putting 2 more herringbones into this same space to match the other ones, the other chain 2 spaces. There's 1. And 2, and then we're going to end it the same way by putting a half double crochet into the top of the very first herringbone stitch. And that's going to count as our chain 2 space. Remember, that eliminates any slip stitching. Now, it's not going to lay flat, all right? It's going to be, they don't lay flat, so don't worry about it being all buckled and everything. That's just how they are. All right, so let's go ahead and start row 3, which is the last row of the repeat. It's very simple, but remember, we always have to turn after every row. So we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. Chain 1 never counts as a stitch here. So in this first one here, we're just going to put this first space, we're just going to put 1 herringbone into this space on this time. Just 1. That, and then we're going to work, and we're going to put 1 herringbone into every stitch until we get to our next chain 2 space. So we'll just work across here, putting a herringbone into the top of every stitch. Till we make it to our chain 2 space. Like that. Now we're at our chain 2 space, and this is the only difference between row 2 and row 3 is this time we just put in the chain space 1 herringbone, a chain of 2, and then 1 more herringbone. So that's the only difference. The last round was 2 herringbones, chain 2, 2 herringbones. This round is only 1 herringbone, chain 2, 1 herringbone. And then we repeat again, 1 herringbone in every stitch until you get to your next chain 2 space. Okay, I'm at my next chain 2 space, and remember this time it's just 1 herringbone, chain 2, and 1 herringbone. Now we're going to repeat this pattern all the way around until we get back to where we started. 1 herringbone in every stitch, and then 1 herringbone, chain 2, 1 herringbone in each of the chain 2 spaces until we make it back right here to our starting point, and that's where I'll meet back up with you. Remember, it's going to look funny. That's just kind of how they look. That's how they look. All right, once you make it back to your starting point right here in this space, we only put 1 herringbone here in the beginning, so let's go ahead and end by putting 1 more herringbone in there to match the other chain 2 spaces, and then we're going to end by putting a half double crochet into our first herringbone. And that will end the repeat of the hexagon part of this cardigan. So it's just a repeat of rows 2 and 3. So remember, so for row 4, you'll put, the only difference is in the chain spaces. You put 2 herringbones, chain 2, 2 herringbones, and all the chain spaces around on every even row. And then on every odd row, you put 1 herringbone, chain 2, 1 herringbone in all the chain 2 spaces. All right. Always remember to chain 1 and turn your work in order, so you'll get that herringbone pattern. Now, like I said, it's not going to lay straight. This is what they look like. Just like this, you know. They don't lay straight. They don't lay straight. All right. So let's see here. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So I did a total of 18 rows, all right? But yours might be different. What you want to do is you want to continue the pattern of rows 2 and 3 until your sides, they'll all measure the same. About 20 to 20 and a half inches. Doesn't have to be exact, but you want them in between 20 and 20. If I could get it on here, I'll show you here. In between 20 and 20 and a half inches. So that's where mine's laying right now. Remember, all the sides are going to be the same. Now, it doesn't matter what size you're doing. That's the number you want. All right. We'll adjust the size in a little bit whenever we work on the back and the front. But you need to do 2 hexagons exactly the same with the exact same amount of rows to where the side measures in between 20 and 20 and a half inches, something like that. Okay. Now what we're going to do is, you see it how it is. Now these get folded, so like this. Just a second here. Just a second, and we'll get it folded up to where it looks kind of. You gotta just mess around with it, and then it'll fold right. So you kind of just take one corner and whip it over to the other, and then you see it kind of forms what looks like a half of a jacket, kind of, right? So you make 2 of them exactly the same. That's what we have to do. 2 of them exactly the same. Make sure they have the exact same number of rows on them. So this would be your back, and then your arm area, and then down here would go the front, and of course this would be the bottom area. But we're not done yet. Okay, so we have to do some sewing together, and we have to add some more rows to our back side and some more rows to our bottom. It's very highly customizable. You can make it, you know, as long as you want, as short as you want. We'll do something with the sleeves, which you can make them as long as you want or as short as you want. So why don't we go ahead and we'll add some rows to, so you get your piece folded up, right? We're going to add some rows to the back, okay, back and forth. All right, so we can put maybe just a little bit of a neckline. So what you want to do, once you get it folded up and you see that this is your back, you want to look at which way your herringbone's going here, and you want to start it in the opposite direction. So this is the back side of the herringbone. So I'm just going to start right down here in the corner. So my next row will be the front. All right. You can just go ahead and start in the chain space here. Now remember, we are just going to work some rows back and forth on each piece, and this is the back side of your cardigan. So go into that chain 2 space and start your yarn, and we're going to chain 1, which doesn't count as a stitch. We're just going to work one herringbone into that stitch. All right, or one herringbone into that chain 2 space, just like that. Now we're going to work one herringbone in every stitch until we get up here to the top to our next chain 2 space. So now we're working the herringbone in back and forth rows. I don't know what's going on here. All right, here we go. So you just go along and work a herringbone into every stitch. Now, I told you the size that I'm making. Now, please refer to the description box for sizing to see how many more rows you have to add on each back panel to get to the correct size. I got the measurements, like I said, and everything in the description box for different sizes. So check that out, find your size, and it'll tell you how many rows on each panel you need to add to the back to achieve the size that you need. And if you want to, you want it more oversized or whatever, you can just do a bigger size. That's fine. But I'm going to continue putting one herringbone into every stitch. And then when I make it back to the top, to the chain 2 space, that's where I'll meet back up with you, okay? So all the way up here to here. That's where I'll see you again. All right, made it up here to the top. Chain 2 space here, just put one herringbone in it. Remember, we are working on the back of the cardigan. Chain 1, and then we turn our work and go back down again. And we're just going to do some rows on the back part of the cardigan. So remember, again, so there's no chain space anymore. We just go directly into this first herringbone here and put a herringbone in it. First one's always the hardest. Like that, and one herringbone into every stitch until we get down to the bottom again, and then chain 1 and turn and do herringbone rows. So I'm going to continue this until I get as many rows as I need for the size that I'm doing. And you would continue yours until you get as many rows to the size that you're doing. And remember, you need to do the same amount of rows on both panels. All right, so I'm working on my second row here. And I'm going to do a total of 4 on each piece. So this is my second. I'm going to do 4 on this piece. Back and forth, you go all the way down and then back up. And then on the second piece again, remember, you take it, this is your second one, same size as the other one, and you kind of fold one side over. And then, let me zoom out so I can try to, it's got it like this. So you got 1 point here, 1 point here, and here's the third point. And then you got 1 point here, 1 point here. This would be the third point. So you got 2 points in between these 2 pieces. Make those points align like that. And then these 2 points align right here. And then these 2 points align down here like that. All right. And remember, we are working on the back part. So that is not, this is the front here, not this top here, right back here. So I'm doing 4 rows for the size that I'm doing on each one of these panels of herringbone. All right, look in the description box to see how many you do. So I've done 2 on this panel. Well, I'm on my second one on this panel, and then I'll go ahead and do a total of 4 more, and then, or 4 total, I'm sorry, and then I'll come to this piece and I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4 rows of herringbone on this piece. All right, and then that's when I'll meet back up with you. Remember to do however many it says for your size, and then we will sew the back part up. All right, let's go ahead and finish this up real quick. Okay, so as you can see, I got my 4 rows on each side done for, you know, for my size. So let's go ahead and try to do this the easiest way possible. Now, if there's a certain way that you sew things together, by all means, you use whatever way works for you. I mean, sewing is sewing, and however you want to do it is fine. You know, you can use a mattress stitch, you can slip stitch, single crochet. I'm going to use a yarn needle. And what I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to sew up the sleeves first, and then we'll sew up the back. So this is the right side of my work facing me, as you can see, because here's the back panels that we just added to. So I'm going to put one to the side, and I'm going to work on one and sew up these sleeves. So I'm going to keep the right side facing me. All right, I'm going to start right up here. So since I did 4 rows of herringbone, so it's normal for a herringbone when worked in back and forth rows to have that wave. So if yours has that, that's completely normal. So I'm going to line up this is the top of my work right here. This is my sleeve, and these are the 4 rows that I just put on. Remember, you might have more or less than me, but I'm going to line up this corner with the corner here where I started my 4 rows. So these 4 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, are still visible, and I'm going to start sewing at these 2 corners all the way down my sleeve. And like I said, I'm doing it with the right side of my work facing me. I'm just going to kind of neatly sew it the best that I can in a back and forth manner, leaving those 4 rows that I made exposed and just starting in these corners, the corner of this piece and the corner of this piece, and leave some yarn there. And like I said, I'm going to try to just do it as neatly as I can. I am on the top of my work. I mean, the right side of my work is facing me, so just kind of maybe neatly line up your stitches. I only have the right side of my work facing me now because if I was to do it on the wrong side and not doing it this way, if I flipped it right side out, there would probably be a big indentation there where I sewed. So hopefully this doesn't look too bad. But remember, you don't have to use my method. Use whatever you're comfortable with when it comes to sewing. Everybody does their own thing, you know, with sewing. I'm more of a sewer with a yarn needle than I am a hook. But sometimes I will use a hook. It just depends. I guess it depends on my mood. And today I just felt yarn needly. So I'm going to do this all the way down my sleeve, neatly back and forth. Let me see what that seam is going to look like before I go on. Yeah, I'm okay with that seam. I think that looks pretty good. Now, I guess maybe the mattress stitch would look better, more seamless, but I'm okay with this. I'm going to go with this. So I'm going to work all the way down until I get down here to the end of my sleeve, and that's where I'll meet back up with you. All right, when you make it to the end here, which I did, and I have my chain spaces left, I'm just going to go through like one of the chain spaces on this side and one on this side, and then again back on this side, and then back on this side, and then that will be good for that, because I'll probably do something around the sleeves later. Now you can take this and kind of hide your tail, you know, however you usually hide them. I'll probably flip it out underneath and hide it on the inside. And then you want to do the same thing to the other sleeve. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, get my other sleeve done, and then we'll sew up the back portion. All right, so I got both my sleeves sewn up there. Now I'm gonna flip it. Oh, sorry. I flipped it here to the back. Right side still facing me. I'm gonna sew the back up the same way that I sewed sleeves up, in the same manner. I'm gonna try to use these two tails as some yarn first, and then if I need to add more yarn to it, I will do that. So start at the top here and sew all the way down, and you'll have a little bit, depending on what size you did, of a little bit of a few, a few rows here. Well, I got 4 on this side and 4 on this side, but depending on the size, you'll have a little bit of an opening in there at the top. So we're just sewing the back up the same way, whatever way you chose to sew up your sleeve. So there's my sleeve seam. It's not too bad. It's acceptable for me. It'll work. All right, so go ahead and do the back the same way. So I got my back sewn together, and you can see my seam running across here. Now if you sewed it the same way I did and you don't like the seam, although I think it looks pretty good, the houndstooth is reversible. So if you wanted to flip it inside out, or the other way, bring your sleeves, I'll just show you what it looks like the other way. Put your sleeves out the other way, and then check the seam out that way and see if you prefer that. That is fine too. But I think the seam has an indentation this way, and the same at the top. So it's really up to you. I mean, both sides are pretty clean, as far as the seam goes. If you follow along with me. So I'm just telling you, it is reversible. So if you want to, like the seam one way, you can just flip it out and do it the other. So, but you do want to make sure that you get the side that you want and keep it that way, because there will be a part that's not reversible. All right, so now we need to add some length to it. Now, let's see. You know what? Before we add some length, I'm going to add some rows here. We're going to add some rows here. You can try it on if you want and see, maybe you want to make it different than what my measurements say. That's fine. But look in the description box for measurements. I'm going to do the houndstooth. Here, this is the front, and here, I'm going to do 2 rows on this side and 2 rows on this side. And now that is for my size that I said I was doing. Like I said, refer to the description box for yours, but you can do more if you want. But I am going to be adding some ribbing as well. But so you just go ahead and start your yarn up and do the houndstooth the same way we did it when we did it on the back, where I did the 4 rows on each side. Except for now, I'm just going to do 2 rows on each side. So I'll just start down here in the corner, up, all the way up to the chain 2 space here, and then I will go back down again and do another row. So, but we're not doing anything back here yet. We will, but not as of yet. We're not going to. So let me look at my houndstooth here. So mine's going, I just try to get my houndstooth to go in the same direction. So mine's going this way, and if I start here, it'll go that way as well. So I need to start, this one's going the same direction as well, isn't it? Yep. All right. Okay, I'm just going to start on the inside then. You don't have to do this. I'm just trying to make my houndstooth go in the, the back and forth manner. You wouldn't even be able to really notice it probably. I'm just being weird and finicky, I guess. But you just start in the corner of one of your sides, and we do it like the same as we did the back. We put 1 houndstooth in the chain 2 space, and then 1 in every stitch up until we get to reach the chain 2 space at the top. just like this. So all the way up here to this chain 2 space, and then you put 1 houndstooth in this chain 2 space, chain 1 and turn, and go back down again with another row of houndstooth. And remember, I'm doing 2 on each side. In the description of the sizing, it'll tell you how many to do for your size. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish that up real quick. 2 rows on this side and 2 rows on this side. You do as many as it says in the description box, or as many as you want. Actually, it's your cardigan, and you do it how you like. So I'm just gonna go ahead and finish out my 2 rows on each side. All right, so I did 2 rows of herringbone here, you can see, and then 2 rows on this side. Okay, let's add some length if you want it. If you don't have to have it. You know, everybody wants something different. But if you want to add some length, start at the bottom, and we're just going to be working rows of herringbone, starting from right here all the way around the whole back side, all the way around and back to this side. And we chain 1 and turn, and herringbone all the way back around, all the way back around to this side. Chain 1 and turn, and that's what we do to add some length. And you can add as much as you'd like. Now, I did mention I will be putting a little ribbing at the bottom. That's not anything you really have to do if you don't want to, and you can make this as long as you like. So to go ahead and start here, the rows that you did here on the side, you're really not going to be able to see where the stitches need to go until you get over here. So you just kind of got to do your best to evenly space out your herringbone. So I'm going to put one of them in the corner, this corner right here. Oops, about did that wrong. And then I'm gonna try to evenly space out my herringbones. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm actually gonna, well, I don't know. You could put 1 or 2 in a corner, whatever you think. I think I'm gonna put 2 down here in the corner. That's what I'm gonna do. There we go. Yeah, that fills it in a little better. Then I'm gonna kind of evenly space out my herringbones on these 2 rows. Just kind of do the best that you can. If you have more rows, just evenly space out until you get over here to where you can see where your herringbones need to go. So here I am. I'm going to put 1 in this corner. And then I can see clearly where they need to go now. Just 1 in the top of every stitch. All the way around the whole bottom until I make it to the other side. And then I'll evenly space out my herringbones on these 2 rows that I put. And then I'll chain 1, turn, and just keep doing rows on the bottom of herringbone until, you know, you get to the length that you want it to be. You don't have to do what the description says, you know, that's just an estimate. Like I said, it's very customizable to your liking. Some people like short sweaters, cardigans. Some people like really long ones. And some people like a mid-length. So I'm going to continue along the bottom, working all the way around with herringbone. Get to here, I'm going to chain 1, turn, herringbone again, all the way around. Get to here, chain 1, turn, herringbone again, all the way around. And I'll let you know how many rows I do total. Okay, so let's see where we're at now. Now you can do as many rows on the bottom as you want. I did 5 for the size that I said. 5 rows. Now try it on. You want to, you know, some people like longer cardigans than others. That's completely up to you. But we are going to do some ribbing now. Probably a couple, you know, 1.5 or 2 inches of ribbing along the bottom. So once you get as many rows as you like, which I said. I did 5 on the bottom there. Why don't we start the ribbing? Let's see. All right. So the ribbing looks the same regardless of whether you work it from the back or the front. So it doesn't matter when you start your ribbing whether you're working from the back to the front. Gosh, I hope I don't run out of yarn. I hope I don't run out. So we're going to do the ribbing on the bottom first before we do it up the sides and the neck. And I'm going to do something on the sleeves. Well, I already got one sleeve done. So it's going to look a little something like this. It's hard to get these baggy sleeves to taper down. But, you know, it looks okay. So I'll show you how to do that as well. All right, so first thing, you got your cardigan. As long as you want it to be, and remember that we are adding 1.5 inches to 2 inches of ribbing. All right, so now what we're going to do is see, I'm going to chain to 7. 1, 2, 3, and turn my work. So this is the only time I'm going to turn my work is because I'm working on the back side. Now remember, this is the bottom ribbing. So we're going to do a single crochet in the second chain from our hook. The second chain. And then 1 single crochet in every stitch of the chain. And then when you get down here, you should have 6 single crochets. So that's how big our ribbing is going to be. All right. Now what we're going to do is we are going to slip stitch into the next 2 stitches. So we don't count this one because that's the one we just started from. So not this one. The next one we slip stitch into. And then the next one, right after that, we're going to slip stitch into. And we're going to chain 1, and we're going to work back up this chain that we just did. And we're going to be working a single crochet in the back loop. So the one, each stitch has a loop. The one closest to you is a front loop. The one furthest away is the back loop. So single crochet, back loop only, all the way up, and you should have 6. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the last one up here is 6. It gets easier the more you do. It's just kind of tiny right now. The last one's always a hard one. All right, got it. Okay, now we're going to chain 1, and I'm just going to flip my work back this way, and we're going to work 6 single crochets down again, working in the back loop. So go into this very first one here, the back loop of it, and that counts as 1, and then the back loop of the remaining 6 stitches. There's 2 and 3 and 4, 5 and 6. And now we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to slip stitch into the next 2 stitches. We don't go into the one that we just worked, so that is this one right here. So we slip stitch into the next one, and then the next one, and then we chain 1, and we repeat what we just did again. So that's kind of what the ribbing starts to look like. So again, we're going to do 6 single crochets up, back loop only. One, two, three, 4, 5. I don't know why that last one's always hard. There we go. 6. Again, we're going to chain 1 and turn, and we're going to do the 6 single crochets down, back loop only. So this very first one here, back loop. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And again, we're going to repeat. So slip stitch into the next 2. This one is the one that we worked in, so we go right over here and slip stitch, and then slip stitch into the next, chain 1 and repeat. And this is what we're going to do all along the bottom of the cardigan, if you want to. You don't have to put the ribbing, but if you want to, this is what I'm doing. So back up, 6 stitches, back loop only. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, chain 1, go back, back down, back loop only, 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and repeat. Slip stitch in the next 2. Do not count the one that we just worked in, so we had to jump over to this one and slip stitch, and slip stitch into the next one, chain 1, and start again. So I'm going to repeat this pattern all the way across the back, and then back up to the front of the other side. All right, see you in a few minutes. All right, so I'm coming to the end here of the bottom of my ribbing, and I've made it, and I went back down my 6 stitches. So I'm just going to end with a slip stitch here. I actually, this is a stitch I started in, and I just went back up and back down, and I'm also going to slip stitch in that same stitch again. Actually, I think I'll just slip stitch in the chain 1 space here at the end. There we go. Now, if you happen to not end exactly like you're supposed to, just kind of, you know, make it in there. If you have to go into the same stitch twice like I did, you won't be able to tell. Now, what you want to do with the ribbing is, because, you know, we might have different counts at the bottom, so with the ribbing, I like to give it a gentle stretch, both directions, just gently. Kind of gives it a, I already did that stretch down here, but yeah, just stretch it up a bit, you know, just do it gently, and then this way, otherwise it kind of crumples up. Now let's look and see what we got here. Which is my right side? Oh, let me clip this yarn here. This yarn looks orange in my camera. It's not orange. It's really pretty dark brick red. Okay, let me go ahead and tie that off. Now let's look at, I forgot here. What am I doing? Okay. So I already we got our bottom ribbing done. It looks nice. It's okay if it's flipping up here or whatnot, because we're going to be doing ribbing up the sides here, so it'll control that. It'll keep that under control. Now, one thing about a hexie that I myself particularly am not a huge fan of is the baggy sleeves. There's really not much you can do about the baggy sleeve of the hexie. It's not bad. Some people like it, and a lot of people just leave it as is. And sometimes I've made hexies where I've left it as is, you know, and it's just kind of a baggy sleeve. You can do that if you want. I did not do that for this one though. So I made a sleeve over here the best that I can. I know it looks a little funny, but I'll show it to you. It's still really baggy, but I did narrow it down a bit at the end and put some long ribbing on it. So, you know, you see, I don't even know why I'm putting that on. You saw the picture. So, like I said, it's baggy still, but I did do some decreasing and then some long ribbing. If you want to do that, I'll show you how I did it. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to. The bagginess of the sleeve, you know, it's really up to you. Like I said, sometimes, you know, I've made hexies and left them baggy. It really depends on what you like. But even when you try to narrow down the sleeve of a hexie cardigan, it's still kind of baggy anyways. So let's do the sleeve. Enough talk, right? Enough talk. I got garbage up here. Okay, now I'm going to show you how we're going to do the sleeve. And everybody's sleeve should be about the same. Yeah, everybody's sleeve will be will have the same number of rows. Since it's so baggy, you can make the ribbing longer if you want. You can add more rows if you want, like you seen it on me. If you feel like you want your sleeves longer, sure, you can add more rows. And one thing I did different on the sleeve, just to be different, I guess, you know how I talked about the herringbone needs to go in back and forth rows. And when you're working in the round, you have to turn it like we did when we made the big hexagon. I thought just to be different, I wouldn't turn it at the end of the sleeves. So this is not turned. It's just the herringbone all going the same direction, just to give it, you know, just to be different. But you can turn yours if you want. So you got your sleeve here. Okay, let's go ahead and start up here in the chain 2 space. And we're going to chain 1. So what we're going to do for the first round is we're going to work 5 herringbones in a row, and then we're going to do a herringbone decrease, and we're going to do that all the way around. So we're going to do our first herringbone right here into this chain space, and we want to do 5 in a row. So that's 1, and then the next one over here in the stitch, 2, 3, 4, and there's 5. Now I'll show you how we do the herringbone decrease. So the decrease is worked over 2 stitches. What it does is it takes the next two stitches and turns it into 1. That way we're slowly decreasing our sleeves, although it's still pretty baggy in the end. All right, so here's how we're going to do the herringbone decrease. So we're going to yarn over and go into the next stitch, draw up a loop, and pull that loop directly through the first loop like that, and then yarn over and go through 1 loop. So now we have 2 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over and go into the next stitch and draw up a loop and pull that loop through the first loop on our hook, and then yarn over and go through 1 loop on our hook, and now we have 3 loops that remain. Yarn over and go through all 3. So that is a herringbone decrease. So now we're going to do 5 herringbones in a row. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now we're going to do the decrease again. So I'll go ahead and show you that again. So we're going to yarn over, go into the next stitch, drop a loop, pull that loop through the first loop, and then we're going to yarn over and go through one loop. So we have 2 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over and go into the next stitch, draw up a loop, pull that first loop through like that, yarn over and go through one loop, 3 loops that remain, yarn over and go through all 3. So that's what we're going to repeat all the way around. Herringbone into the next 5. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and one more time I'll show you how to do the decrease again. Yarn over, go into the next stitch, drop a loop, pull that loop through the first loop on our hook, and then yarn over and go through one loop. You got 2 loops now. Yarn over and go into the next stitch, drop a loop, pull that loop through the first loop on our hook, yarn over and go through one loop on our hook, 3 loops remain, yarn over and go through all 3 loops, and that's our decrease. So we're going to go ahead and repeat that pattern of 5 herringbones and then a herringbone decrease. 5 herringbones and a herringbone decrease until we get back here to our starting point. All right, so once you make it back around, it doesn't matter like where you end at. Like I ended right back here in a decrease. I didn't have enough to do 5 more, so just finish it out until you get back here to your starting point. The amount of stitches you have doesn't really matter at this point. We'll fix that later. So go ahead and slip stitch into your first stitch like that. Now, like I said, I'm not toning my work because just to make a little different pattern, I guess. But if you want to keep the herringbone going back and forth like that, you could turn your work now and then work in the opposite direction. But I'm going to keep going in the same direction. All right, so this time we're going to chain 1 and we're going to do 4 herringbones in a row and then a herringbone decrease. So we're going to go back in that first stitch there and work our herringbone. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then our herringbone decrease into the next, so over the next 2. So that's the pattern. We'll call this round 2 of the sleeve. And there's my decrease. All right, so round 2 is 4 herringbones and a herringbone decrease. 4 herringbones and a herringbone decrease all the way around till you make it back to your starting point. All right, so I made it back around at the end of row 2 and I slip stitched into my first herringbone. Row 3 of the sleeve, we're going to chain 1 and we're going to do now 3 herringbones in a row and then a herringbone decrease. So that will be the repeat for row 3. So there is 1, 2, 3, and then the herringbone decrease over the next 2 stitches. Just like that. So that's the pattern we're going to repeat for row 3. 3 herringbones and then the decrease. 3 herringbones and the decrease all the way around till we make it back to our starting point. All right, made it to the end of row 3 of our sleeve. Row 4, we're going to chain 1 This time it's 2 herringbones. So go back into that same stitch and we work a herringbone. There's 1, and then 1 in the next, and then the herringbone decrease. And that will be the repeat for round 4 of the sleeve. 2 herringbones and then the decrease. 2 herringbones and the decrease all the way around until we make it back to our starting point. All right, row 5, we're just going to repeat what we did on row 4. We're going to chain 1 and we're going to go back in the same stitch and do a herringbone. So we're going to do 2 herringbones in a row and then a herringbone decrease. So row 5 is just a repeat of row 4 and then decrease on the next. There we go. So I'm going to repeat that pattern, 2 herringbones and then the decrease, 2 herringbones and the decrease all the way around till we make it back to our starting point. All right, so what you want to do now is count your stitches here, how many you have, because you know we might have different amounts of stitches depending on where we put our stitches. So let's go ahead and count here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so you want to shoot for 20. All right. Now I actually have 19, so I'll have to add a stitch on my next round. But now what you want to do though before you shoot for 20 is try it on and see if it fits you okay down, because this is going to be down towards, you know, this area here. So, you know, you try it on and make sure your arm goes through that okay and it feels okay on you at 20 stitches. And if it does, then, you know, that's what we'll go for. But if it's, you know, too small, you can take away some stitches. If you want more than 20, you know, a few extra stitches, you add it. But I think it's going to go for base 20 for most people, but everybody, you know, everybody's different. So I have 19. So what I'm going to do a round of single crochet here before I do the ribbing. So what I need to do is chain 1, and I'm going to work around and putting 1 single crochet in every stitch. Now since I have 19, there's going to be a stitch that I'm going to have to put 2 single crochets in. I'll just do it right now. 1, 2, and that will make 20 for me. Now if you put however many stitches you need to make 20 around this, or if you need to take away a stitch, that's fine too, but just continue around and make sure when you get to the end you have 20 stitches. All right, so I made it around, and again you might want to try it on one more time, because after you add that single crochet it does tighten up a little bit more. But remember, you don't, you know, you just want it to be able to slip on and off your hand comfortably. And if you need to add or take away some single crochets, now's the time to do it. And remember, because we're going to put the ribbing on next, and remember, however many single crochets you have on this sleeve, you're going to need to do the same on the single crochet sleeve of your other one. So they're the same. So the ribbing takes no special number. So whatever you have that, you know, fits you comfortably, that's what you go with. So I got 20. And that's fine. That works for me. Fits fine. It slips on and off just fine. It's a little, the ribbon gets on and it feels a little snug up here, and I like that, you know, not tight, but you know, a little snug, so it's not like flopping around on my wrist or anything. So now we're going to go ahead and do that ribbing. Now that ribbing is longer than the ribbing that we put at the bottom. You probably noticed that. Now you can make the ribbing as long as you want. That is completely up to you. But what I'm going to do is chain 13. And then I'm going to single crochet. It's a little fiddly here in the first couple rows. Single crochet in the second stitch from the hook. And then in every stitch down. So we should have 12 stitches now for this row of ribbing. We had 6, well, I did 6 on the bottom. If you followed along, we'll have 6, and then the cup is going to have 12. But it's going to be worked in the same manner. So we'll have 12 all the way down. All right. And then we do it, like I said, the same way. We slip stitch into the next two. So we started right here, so we need to slip stitch in this one. And then the next one. Chain 1, and then we work back up, working in the back loops. So we should have 12 going back up, working in the back loops. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Chain 1, and then we turn and go back down in the working in the back loops. So this is, remember, this is done the same way we did the ribbing on the bottom. So there'll be 12 in the back loops going back down. There's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Come over here and slip stitch in the next 2. We don't count the one that we just went into, so this one right here, and then the next one over, chain 1, and work back up it. So the same way we did the bottom, except for we have longer rows. So continue working that all the way around your cuff till you make it over here to the end, and that's where I'll meet back up with you, okay? All right, I'm coming to the end, and you can see that I have 2 stitches left to slip stitch into. If you do not, don't worry about it. If you just have 1, just slip stitch into it. Just go until you are slip stitch into the very last stitch, and then we'll go back up our piece one more time. There's 10, 11, and 12. Chain 1, and we'll go back down it one more time, and then we will have to sew this piece together. When you do this in a round, like this ribbing in a round, you have to sew it up at the end. So I'm going back down, back loop, should have 12 stitches, And it might look kind of small to you, but don't worry, this ribbing stretches. So when you put it over your hand and wrist, it'll stretch. That's a good thing about the ribbing. It's really stretchy. Alright, when you make it all the way down, oh, we got one more here. Sorry about that. Just slip stitch into the first one that you did right here. And then tie off, but leave a little bit longer of a tail, enough to seam up this seam right here. So I'm stuck on a piece of tweed. Of course I am. Of course I am. Alright, that's good. Let me clip that off. Alright, and then we're going to use our yarn needle and we're just going to seam up this piece here. Nice and neat. I know it looks real small, don't it? It's okay. Like I said, it's really stretchy, so I mean, it's going to fit a little snug, but it's still going to be, nice. So you just take your yarn needle and just kind of neatly sew it together. I sew it just back and forth like this, just to get it all sewn up so your seam ain't coming undone. Not really any right or wrong way to do it. Just get it done like that. And you want to make sure your pieces line up here at the top though. Want to make sure you get the top really good, see, because it'll pop open. So make sure you go through the top really good. And to hide my tail, I kind of just go back down it neatly again. And that going down it twice gives some added strength, plus it kind of hides your tail, as you know, because you're weaving it in again. Give you some added strength to your seam while hiding your tail. You don't have to go all the way down, but you can if you want. Alright, I think that is probably good for me. Poke that through, then back through again. I'm just kind of doing a little bit of weaving of the tail there. There we go. That's good. I'm clipping that off. Okay. Now, like I said, it's gonna look really small, but once it gets over your wrist, see, it stretches nice and stretchy. One thing you really don't want to do though is, I know a lot of people would be tempted, even me, is to clean up this edge with single crochet, but by doing that it'll lose its stretch. It won't stretch anymore. Like at the top, the single crochet will kind of keep it in place. So I think it looks fine just the way it is. Alright, so you want to do the other sleeve the exact same, alright? And then once you get your sleeves done, we just have to do the ribbing around. We'll start down here, work our way up, go around here. I'm going to do a row of single crochet first though. Here, around the neck, here, and back down. Alright, so first off is a row of single crochet. So, this will give you a nice clean palette to work with, hopefully. Alright, let's look and see what we got. Alright, we're going to start down here at the bottom of our ribbing. This is just a single crochet row. Pull your yarn through, chain one, go back in that same spot, and single crochet, and then kind of evenly space single crochet up the side of this ribbing. You know, the best that you can. And then here's those extra rows that we put on the bottom. So you're going to need to evenly space out single crochet there as well, because you can't really see the stitches. So again, the best that you can. It is really hard to see some of these stitches, isn't it? All right, so I'm about I'm about to where we can see the single crochets. Just about there. All right, that's good. So I did my best to evenly space out single crochet there. Now I'm going to work my way up and put one single crochet in every stitch until I get near the neckline, all right, at the top. And that's where I'll meet back up with you, and we'll see what we can do about that neckline up there. All right, so when we get up here to the neckline, we're going to have to do a little bit of maneuvering because we want to put ribbing around it all, but we want the ribbing to flow smoothly with the neckline. And as you can see, the neckline, this part sticks out more than this. And that really depends on how many rows that you did as well. You could have done 3 rows as opposed to 2. All right, so now to keep the flow of the neckline a little bit, we're going to have to do decrease just a bit here. So I'm going to single crochet on the side of that double, and if you did 3 rows, you might have to do 2 single crochets. Now I'm going to do a single crochet decrease. So I'm going to go into the side of this double herringbone and drop a loop, and then I'm going to come down here into the bottom part of the double herringbone and drop a loop and single crochet decrease like that. And then I'm going to do across this little open area here to keep the flow. I'm actually going to do, once you make it to this area, because if you did 3 rows, you'll probably have to do 2 single crochet decreases, but we're going to do a double crochet decrease. So we're going to go into this chain space, drop a loop and yarn over and go through the first 2, yarn over and go into this space right here that we sewed. It's like, you can see like there's 2 sides of it. Go into this side over here, drop a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2 and the remaining 3. So that made, let's see how that looks. I think that'll be okay. And then we're going to do a double crochet decrease again in the same spot. So on this side of the sewed spot, we're going to yarn over, go kind of into it, drop a loop, yarn over and go through the first 2, and then yarn over and go into the chain space, drop a loop, yarn over and go through the first 2, and yarn over and go through all 3. And we are at the back of the neck. And here is where we have to kind of evenly space out our single crochets again, the best that we can. It's always hard, but we do the best that we can to kind of evenly space out single crochet along the back of the neck. And depending on how many rows you did, you would just evenly space out. This is so we can get the ribbing around it to look a little uniform, you know. And then I'll show you how to do this little side again when we get there, okay? I'm going to continue evenly spacing out my single crochets here around the neck. Alright, so I'm at this spot again, and we're going to do the same thing that we did on the other side. So in this chain space, and here's our seam, a seam spot, the spot over here on this seam, we're going to do a double crochet decrease. So we're going to yarn over, go into the chain space, draw up a loop, yarn over and go through the first two, and then on this side of the seam we're just going to kind of poke in it, draw up a loop, yarn over, go through the first two, and yarn over and go through the remaining three. That's a decrease, double crochet decrease, and then we're going to do it again in the same spot on the other side. So we're going to yarn over and poke through the seam over here like that, draw up a loop, yarn over and go through the first two, and then we're going to yarn over and go through the chain space, draw up a loop, yarn over, go through the first two and the remaining three. And now this is where we got to do the single crochet decrease. So remember, I did 2 rows. If you did 3 rows, you'll probably have to do 2 decreases. So I'm going to go this up the sides of these, this doubles right here. These are herringbones right here. I'm going to go in the side of one and draw up a loop, and then in the side of, kind of evenly space it out. Next one, draw up a loop, yarn over and go through all 3 loops. That was a decrease. Now remember, if you did 3 rows, do another decrease, single crochet decrease, and then in with a single crochet into the top of the stitch here like that. And that kind of evened that out a bit, and now we can work down, or work putting a single crochet into every stitch all the way down the other side. So let's look at that top so we can see how that ribbing is going to flow around the collar. Let's look at it. Take a peek. Yeah, that's going to be fine. You might have, it's okay if you have a little bit of indentation there. That's fine. See, I got a dip there and a dip there. We just kind of want to close it off, that gap off a little bit. Remember, if you had 3 rows as opposed to 2, you would have not need to have done 2 single crochet decreases on this side, and then the single crochet on the first stitch, and then no matter what size you do the 2 double crochet decreases in each of the chain spaces, and on this side as well. All right, that's working for me. It's good. So I'm going to continue down this side, single crochet in every stitch. When I get down here, I'm going to evenly space out, single crochet again all the way down here to the end of where my ribbing is. All right, now we're at the final thing that we have to do, which is we're going to do the ribbing just like we did at the bottom. Start it, and we're going to go all the way up around the neckline, all the way back down this side until we end up over here on the other side. So we're just going to start. Now if you want your ribbing longer than what I'm doing, I'm just going to do the chain 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Gonna be working on the back side. I'm gonna work again. And I'm gonna have this 6 chains of ribbing, just like I did at the bottom. By all means, you can do more if you want, but we're gonna do this the exact same way we did the bottom ribbing, and the exact same way we did the ribbing on the sleeve. But I'm having 6 stitches. I chained 7, single crocheted in the second from my hook, and I'm just going to have 6 stitches down now. That's going to be my row, and I'm going to not slip stitch in the first one, but slip stitch in the next one, And the one after, you guys know how to do it. Chain 1 and turn, and 6 stitches all the way up, working in the back loop. So this probably take me just a bit of time here to do this one all the way around anyways. Remember, if you want your ribbing bigger, that's fine. You can do it as big as you'd like. But remember, we're just doing this the same as we did the bottom, you know, and the same as we did the ribbing on the sleeves. Just chain 1 and turn, and you go back down in the back loops. 6 stitches, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Don't go into the one that you just worked, but slip stitch into the next 2. One, here's 2. Chain 1 and then back up again. So I'm going to continue that. Like I said, that ribbing is going to go all the way up and continue around the neck here and all the way back down to this side. And remember, it's okay if you have a little bit of an indentation here. It's not going to make no big difference. Some people though, when they get to the neck, they like to make the ribbing a little longer in that spot. You can do that. I'm not going to do that though. I'm going to keep it the same length the whole way around. 6 chains. All right, I'll see you when I get over to the other side. All right, I went all the way around my piece with ribbing. Here's the collar area up here. Made it to the end. I just did my last row, and here's the last stitch that I slip stitched into. I slip stitch here into the last stitch, and I went up the row, back down it, and I'm going to end by slip stitching into the same stitch, or chain 1 there or something, somewhere around there. And then I'm going to tie off, and now I'm going to hide any remaining tails that I have. Remember, with this ribbing, you can give it just a bit of a stretch both ways, this way and this way. All right, I finished. So you can fold the collar down like that, or you can leave it popped up any way that you want to do it. But yes, that's it. After you're done with the ribbing down here at the bottom that I just finished, we're done. Yay. Now for the sleeves here, you can fold this ribbing too if you want, because it's pretty long. I like to wear mine kind of, you see the picture. You see the picture, I keep forgetting. But that's it. I like it. I think it turned out pretty good. I hope that you guys liked it too. Remember, description box for the different sizes. It is meant to be a bit oversized. So I hope you enjoyed my tutorial. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Turn the notifications on. Check out all my other tutorials. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. If you make this or anything else of mine, come show me a picture on my Facebook page. There's also a link to that below. That's it. Bye guys. Have a good day.